The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the Marketing with Purpose series. This is a segment of the Bliss Business Podcast where we explore what it really takes for marketing leaders to create impact that goes beyond the numbers. I'm Tullio, and in each episode, we sit down with marketing experts to explore their leadership approach, strategies that drive performance, and how they resonate with their audience. Together, we'll dive into what's working, what's not, and how purpose and empathy can transform the way brands connect with people. All right, let's get started. Today, I'm joined by Joel Bulger, Chief Marketing Officer of WOWorks, the platform brand home to 6 better-for-you fast casual restaurants, including Saladworks, Barberitos, Garbanzo, Simply Greek, Fruta Bowl, and Zeets. With an impressive 30-year tenure in marketing and brand development with the restaurant industry, Joel brings a wealth of expertise and a proven track record of fostering growth and innovation. Having previously held primary marketing roles of esteemed brands such as Coca-Cola, Darden Restaurants, Church Chicken, On the Border, Zaxby, Johnny Rockets, love Johnny Rockets, Wendy's International, and Focus Brands, Joel has earned a stellar reputation for his ability to drive guest traffic and enhance menu profitability. We're going to explore breaking down silos across teams and how aligning brand, operations, and strategy can unlock stronger performance across multi-brand platforms. Okay, I'm excited to dive in. Let's do this. So, Joel, before we dive in, I'd love to hear why was breaking down silos across teams the topic you chose to explore with us today, and what makes it so important right now?
No, and first of all, Tullio, thanks for having me today. I'm super excited to be here. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about people. People think that growth comes from creative ideas, and it does in a way, but really where it fails is alignment. It fails in not making everybody aligned, not making people understand not only what you're trying to do, but why you're trying to do it. And that's probably, in my opinion, twice as true in franchise systems, right? Where, because if you look at all the departments out there too, you look at marketing and ops and finance and technology and everybody else who's kind of all involved in the game for you, they all have the same goal, or they all have the same thoughts, but are chasing maybe different goals, right? And or they're probably using different metrics to measure those goals. And so what we're trying to do at WOWorks with our shared services model is really create this team of people that really get along and really understand each other and are really kind of shooting for the same goals, and this constant source of communication where we like each other. I mean, I'm working for a bunch of people that I've known for a lot of years. I mean, my CEO, Kelly Roddy, I've known for almost 20 years. And it's so wonderful working for friends where you have that trust and you have that very deep relationship, and then you can apply it to work. But, when I think about franchisees, even when I think about teams within an organization, as they look at the leadership, if there's not that cohesiveness, if there's not that partnership, if they feel like there's, animosity or tension or friction between them, that's where confidence erodes. But when they see everybody getting along and everybody working together and having the same goals, that's when your internal team starts to blossom. That's when franchisees go, wow, these guys have a plan. And that's when the momentum starts, and that's when growth starts, in my opinion. So this is a very real topic for me because I try to live it every day.
I love that. So key. And that always stems from the very top of the leadership, creating the friendship model, I like to call it. Don't call your company a family. Some family members are dysfunctional. Yes. Friends, they support each other, they celebrate each other, and they call each other out when they need to. So
100%.
It's beautiful when you have that. And it's a reflection of a consciously evolved leader who doesn't need to make it all about them. So, all right, now, but let's get down to brass tacks a little bit about bridging strategy and growth, because CMOs are often pulled between near-term campaign results and long-term brand building. That's the constant tug and pull going on, right? How do you ensure your marketing strategy stays aligned with the company's growth goals, and where do you find the biggest friction points in making that happen?
Well, I mean, if you look at short-term results in long-term brand building as sort of the two yin and yang, if you will, in my mind, they're partners. They're not competitors, and they shouldn't be, right? Because when you're trying to do short-term goals or LTOs or marketing programs, it should reinforce whatever your long-term brand strategy and your brand equity is. It shouldn't, not just borrow from it. It should really be a pillar or a pylon underneath it that supports it. I mean, the biggest friction that I've found, Tullio, is probably measurement, because when you're looking at short-term projects versus long-term objectives, teams will optimize what's easiest to track and instead of what creates that lasting value. And so, what you want to do is really say, hey, the reason, and in the beginning of a program, the reason that we're doing this LTO and the reason this supports Barbaritos, we did a birria promotion, and it's like, it is so hot and it is on trend, but it's also great for your customers. And it's an incredible growth brand for us. But we also need to ensure that our regular customers, people that come in 2-3 times a day or week, have something new to try, and they go, wow, this brand really understands that I need something different and edgy sometimes. And so my goal is always kind of trying to translate those growth goals, what I'm being asked to do, and also what I'm trying to do with my team, into shared metrics so that I can work with operations and say, here's your piece of it, and IT, here's your piece, and HR and finance and everybody else. And so it's just that alignment. I mean, if everybody, I always say, if we all take off together, we all land together, right? If we understand what their goals are from the beginning, then there's no surprises at the end.
I want to take a quick opportunity to give a tip to maybe new incoming CMOs. Maybe it's someone who's been a VP of marketing. Anytime a company's so focused on the short term, run.
Yeah.
My idea is that the long term will become the future short term. So always focus on the long term, because 2 quarters from now will be the most immediate,
the long term,
that quarter. But if you don't get the time to plan for it, you're always going to be behind. And that's a recipe for failure. And as a new CMO, that's a recipe for not.
Great advice. Because people typically plan 2 to 5 years, and 2 years comes up very fast.
Exactly. My question is always like, do you plan to be in business 2 years from now? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's plan that far ahead, because, that quarter's coming. So, whereas if we just plan this quarter, we're always falling behind. All right. So let's talk about some go-to-market challenges and execution across teams. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit more about purpose and leading with purpose under pressure, because this happens a lot, especially in high stakes situations.
Sure.
Like a brand crisis could happen, right? Or a market downturn happens. How do you maintain a sense of purpose and empathy while making quick strategic decisions? Because that's sometimes hard to do. And I'm sure that those leaders listening, especially newer CMOs, like, please give me the goods on how to manage that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring up new CMOs or new leaders in marketing, because there really it is learning. I mean, and it's taken me a 30-year career to figure out how to do this best. But the short answer for this is, in pressure situations, clarity matters more than speed. It's like, there's an old adage, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but it's like, if you have time to redo it, you had time to do it right the first time, right? And then the other thing is, fix the problem, not the blame. It doesn't matter what happened. You are where you are in the situation. So worry about how you got there later and who to hold accountable. But in the short term, in high pressure situations, everybody just relax and start solving things one bite at a time, for the old elephant thing, right? And so, but then purpose becomes the filter, and it's not about people anymore. And it's like, as we go through things, is it eroding our brand equity, or is it building on our brand equity, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that I always tell my team, that the day I start with every team I've had for the last 25 years that I've led, is I always tell them 2 things. I never want to be surprised, right? So Kelly Roddy, my CEO, should never walk down the hall and say, hey, Joel, I heard such and such went wrong. What's happening? And I don't know anything about it. So that's rule 1. I never want to be surprised, and I make sure Kelly's never surprised. And then the second thing is, fail fast and fail forward. And I learned this back in my Coke days, but it's like, we're in marketing. We are trying new things. If you're doing your job well, you are sticking your neck out and you're following trends and you're trying to do things, but they're not all going to work. And so if it doesn't work, don't take the ship down with you. Like, just accept it, walk into my office and say, you know what, we tried this and this it's not going where we want it to go. And then we'll say, okay, back to the get out of jail free. What'd you learn from it? Let's make sure we don't do it again. And then let's cut our losses and move on to the next thing, right? Don't tank any more resources. But,
absolutely. Whether you're a new CMO or an old CMO, here's another tip. Get a coach. Have a mentor. Let's talk about that a little bit. I know that you like doing that. Maybe share a little bit of that. How does that?
Yeah, I was very lucky. I came up pretty poor as a kid, and I was one of 7 kids on a police officer salary. So whatever you imagine, it's probably that and worse. But I put myself through school, and then I was very lucky. I had some mentors early on in my career. I started at an ad agency, but I would also encourage a lot of new marketers to do that because it gives you a lot of perspective on how to work with partners. But then as I got into, I had friends help me get into Coca-Cola. And then from there, I launched my career in the restaurant space and through some wonderful companies. But because of that, I try to mentor people, and I have for the last 25, 26 years now. And it's interesting, Tullio, because the folks I started mentoring in 2000, a lot of them are CMOs or executive vice presidents of one of the large, I won't name, but one of the large pizza companies out there. And it's just so fascinating to see them grow and see, because for me, it's not just about helping people. It's certainly about that, but it's also about, I want to know, 10 or 20 years from now, I'm not going to be in the game anymore. I'm going to be retired, hopefully, and playing golf somewhere, but I want to know that I'm leaving marketing as an industry in better hands than I found it, right? And that these folks are going to continue on, and they're going to do great things, and they're going to be like me, where they care about their teams first. And if you have great teams that believe in their leadership, you can move mountains, right? But that's what we need to have. It can't be the 1980s or 1990s version of ego marketing. That doesn't work anymore. Just simply doesn't. And so, like one of my Sergio Perez, I'll name him only because he's one of my favorite people in the world, but he started with me as an intern when I was at Church's Chicken. He was a college intern, and he just got named to CMO of Latitude Food Group in Florida, which is and Pizza and Tijuana Flats and stuff. And I'm just so proud of some of these folks. So get a leader now, and then when it's your turn, be a leader to other people.
So, Key, I actually just reconnected with an old boss who gave me my first executive role 29 years ago. And there were a few of us that worked with him, loved working with him. That company has since grown to be a $4 billion plus company, but a few of us have had multi-billion-dollar exits. And I was like, you should be really proud of yourself. Your legacy is not just this company you've built. It's also the people that have had great success. 100%. One key thing in common is they all had mentors and coaches. So invest in that, folks. It's so important. Okay, let's move on to another question. And I want to preface this because here's another tip for CMOs, especially new incoming CMOs. If job posting is all about execution, run. Your job's not to be doing SEO or social media posts. It's really aligning around the go-to-market strategy and tactics that drive revenue. So let's ask this question, because this is something a lot of people trip up over, right? Especially newer CMOs. When you're launching a new product or entering a new market, for example, what's been the most effective way to align sales, product, and customer success teams? And where does that alignment tend to break down? And by the way, that's a hint. That is really the job of a CMO to do that work. If your job description doesn't include that, that's not a CMO job. Run. Okay, tell us, what's worked for you in doing that?
In aligning teams, the biggest thing is, first of all, I'll take either a new market or right now we have a new situation, right, at WOWorks. I'll take that situation, for example. We're in the restaurant business. We're in the dining out business. And right now with GLP-1, for example, there's a lot of folks. I mean, I just read something in Fortune magazine recently that 12% of Americans are on a GLP-1 type product. Well, that's 1 in 8 people. That's a lot. But also the article went on to say that of those folks that are on it, 57% are saying I'm dining out significantly less. Well, that's a big deal, right? And that's a shot to restaurants. You're just not
hungry when you're using GLP-1s.
That's right. Well, it's not different than when Atkins was a big deal back then. And you saw what, we had different brands like Krispy Kreme had struggled during Atkins time. But, for me, it's like, okay, so that's the situation. First of all, follow the trends enough to know the situation. Second of all, then say, all right, I got with my team and I said, well, folks, we're in a very fortunate and unique situation that a lot of folks aren't, because I have 6 healthier for you brands. I can GLP all day long. We just haven't been positioning it that way. And so we worked with it. And if you look at our, from any of our brands, Barbaritos or Salad Works or any of those guys, go into our nutritional page. And it's one of the most forward-thinking nutritional pages I've ever seen in restaurants. But one of the things you can do down the right is you can go down and you can filter by whatever you're doing, right? Or for example, Tullio, if you have 2 children and one is lactose intolerant and one has to avoid gluten, right? You can put those filters in and then go by restaurant. It'll tell you everything in our restaurant that they can eat, which is wonderful. And I have friends that their children have just those things. And they're like, oh my gosh, we just avoid restaurants because it's just hard, right? We just don't want to do the wrong things and we don't know what to look for. And it's like, and I showed them this nutritional page and they were like, wow, like that's amazing. Everybody should do that. Well, then we worked with the person that helps us with the nutritional page. And then we added a GLP-1 filter. So now at the front of our websites, it says GLP, these things are GLP friendly, and it'll walk you all the way through and say, so if that's what you're into, that's fine. But now it's, because at the end of the day, and this is true of all marketers out there, we're not selling products, we're solving problems, right? Or solving needs for the guest. And that you've got to get your head in that mindset and stop thinking I'm just selling the next widget or the next entree or whatever. It's if Tullio, if you're GLP-1 and you want to go out and you want to have a salad, but you don't know where to go, if I come to you and say, I sell what you're looking for and I understand what your needs are, I become your friend for life, because then my brand isn't disrupting your life. You're already in this spin of what you're looking for. And I just insert myself in a way that's very meaningful.
Yeah. It's meeting people where they are. That's really what being empathetic and how you market yourself is about. Tell us a little bit more like, maybe share a time when a customer's feedback or a number of customer feedback or behavioral data like completely shifted your campaign direction. I think you just mentioned some of it here with GLP-1. And what did that teach you about balancing intuition and analytics?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, customer feedback is vitally important. And as a CMO or as anybody out there doing marketing, make sure you have multiple resources and that somebody's really going through them every day. Understand what your customers like and dislike, understand what they're after, understand, flavor profiles and trends that they're in. But, customers, they respond all the time and they react to portion size. Customers react to ingredients. But the biggest thing is sometimes things, I guess the biggest times customers have pushed back is when you have some product, some LTO that they absolutely love, and then you have to take it away. That's the L in LTO is limited time offer, right? And so, and I've seen, sometimes it goes away forever. Sometimes it goes away for a cycle or two or a year or two. I've seen some folks out there do it well, but we borrowed a page from some others. And, I had, at a previous company, we had to eliminate like a chicken salad product and something else. And one was egg salad. And you would have sworn I stole Christmas. I mean, the way people reacted to it, they were so upset. But it was regions or areas, like the egg salad did really well in Florida and the chicken salad did really well, like kind of across the panhandle. And so we were like, all right, well, we're not going to put it back. Like we weren't selling enough to justify the real estate on the menu, but at the same time, I'll give you the recipe and I'm going to show you how to use the product. I'll show you how we made it. And you can come in and buy the chicken and do the things at home, and I'll show you exactly how to make it. Because
I love that.
At the end of the day, I want you to be happy. Yeah, I want you to be happy. I'm just not going to make it for you anymore.
Yeah, I love that. Like, because you're still solving you're still caring for the need. The need didn't change, and this is where like the data doesn't always tell the story, because there's a lot of talk about being data driven. That's good to a certain degree, but then the data only tells you the outcome. It doesn't tell you the intent or the motivation. That comes from human connection and listening to actual feedback like that. So that's a great example. Like, okay, we decided to abandon a certain menu item, but we still listened to the need of the customer. So we gave them the recipe. I love that. That's listening. That's being empathetic. I love that. Okay, you can still make changes and still serve clients too. Beautiful. All right. So,
But plus it gives them a little peek under the tent, because anytime somebody gets there's so many knockoffs from restaurant recipes out there. But if I give you the actual recipe, you feel like you've gotten a peek under the tent within our brand that you love. And so now you're even more engaged.
Yeah, you got the secret sauce.
100%.
Awesome.
100%.
All right. Let's continue on. What's worked best for turning marketing into a revenue driver at your company? And where do you still see gaps for like the way you use CRM or lead tracking or sales alignment that makes it harder to measure success sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm in the traffic business and the sales business. I mean, what we always say is, while I look at comp sales every day, if a good rule of thumb is watch traffic. If you unless you're doing deep discounting, which most people aren't, if your traffic goes up, everything is solved. All your problems are solved, right? But my job is, I have to own, unlike other departments, which own part of the customer journey, right? I have to own the whole journey. I have to own the welcome journey. When you first come in, what does that look like? And what do I give you? I have to know your birthday. I have to understand but I even look at POS, and I have to look at the day parts. If I know, Tullio, you always come in at lunch on a Wednesday at 12:30 and you bring one other person with you. Well, I know, I'm beginning to know a lot about you, right? And then over time, as I send you text or SMS, if you reply to email or loyalty, or you do local store marketing things with us, or you reply to an LTO or whatever, I picture customers for me in the center of a spider web, right? And all these things feed back into the center. So over time, the story of Tullio, or the story of any customer, becomes very obvious. And so then what I can do then is take that knowledge, and the more you know about somebody, the less creepy you can message to them, right? Because I know I'll never send you a dinner message at 9:00 at night. That's not your gig. Or because based on your performance, you've always come to lunch at 12:30. But if I do have to send you a dinner message, I better incent you in a way that is so meaningful to you that you're going to change your behavior, right? Or if I want you to bring in 3 people instead of 1, I better say buy 3, get 1 free. And then you're going to go, wait a minute, I do have 2 more friends. Right. And so it's really, but for marketers, we own loyalty, we own CRM, we own local store marketing, we own the personalization. As I said, you better own the customer feedback. Right. And so we drive revenue by really understanding the guest and then reapplying that back to whether it's the LTOs, but especially loyalty and social, and, that careful balance on social of trying to stay on trend with what's going on, and then still being meaningful and relevant and not cheesy, right? And so it's
what I heard very clearly, you got to listen to the signal and then translate that signal into meaningful business impact. And the listening of that signal is engaging and paying attention and taking notes and then giving people what they need. I love that. All right, let's keep going. We got 2 more questions as we're wrapping up here. What's your approach to developing marketing talent so that they not only hit performance goals, but stay engaged and inspired? And where do you see leaders struggle most in retaining the top talent these days?
You can do a lot of the trite stuff about putting people in the right seat, but if you're hiring well, the biggest thing I think is nurture, the newer folks on your team, nurture them and help them understand. For the more senior folks, give them the leadership. I mean, too many people lead by leading, and it's like, it's not my job to lead. I have 3 vice presidents on my team right now, and they need to manage their teams. They need to understand our strategy collectively, what we're trying to do. And then it's like, how are you going to get the best out of teams? Constant communication. I can't remember the process or the program years ago, but one of the things that came out of it used to be how people take information and when you start a conversation. And there are people, and you'll find different people on your teams or different ways, but there are people that need the first 3 minutes just to talk about family and life, and they can't get right into business, or it's off-putting for them. And it was called "How's your mom and them?" So you have to talk like, "Hey, how's your mom doing? How's your family? How's your kids? Everybody good? Okay." And then we can get into work. There are other people that can't stand that. Right. And so they want to get right into the work. And it's like, we can talk about personal stuff once the work's all done. And so, but when I talk about listening for my teams, I created something a number of years ago, and it's not a copyright infringement, but it was taken off of the old Monopoly game, get out of jail free card. And the idea was, how can I make every single person on my team, every single person on my agency teams feel heard? And so what we did is we created this program where at the beginning of the year, well, typically September before the next new year, we'll have our big strategy meeting. And I would give everybody 2 get out of jail free cards where the back is blank. And the idea is throughout the course of the next 12 months, I want every single person. And in that particular case, I had probably 10 or 12 people on my personal team and another 20 on the agency team, or let's say 10 and 20 just for easy math, right? And so those 30 people each got 2 cards. And over the course of the year, I needed 60 big ideas from them. And when I say big, anything that required resources, time, talent, treasure, right? And so they would come back and they would write it down. And then each quarter we'd have our follow-up strategy meetings. And then we'd go through the ideas that were submitted and say, this one makes sense. Let's give it a roll. If it works, that's great. We'd write it up, talk about success. And then I had windows on either side of my door in my office, and I would tape them there. And if it didn't work, you had to write what you learned and then write, kind of why we wouldn't do it or why it didn't work, what you learned, and then we move on. But can you just imagine in that scenario I just gave you getting, 60 great ideas a year, right? Or 60 great ideas a year. And not all of them would be good, but if you had 5 breakout ideas a year from your team, so 1, you have great ideas. 2, everybody's listened to. 3, everybody says, man, my opinions really matter. And I'm just as equal as everybody else on this team for bringing big ideas to the company, right? And so it's very empowering when people feel heard. The other thing I would say is, and I say this, if you do nothing else as a marketer, family first. If you tell your folks what their accountabilities are and you tell them and you agree on timelines, then I don't care if you take your kid to the doctor, your dog to the vet, your car to the shop. You do what you have to. You're not punching a clock with me because you know when things are due. So make sure you put people first. Make sure they have lives. And the great thing about the world we live in now, where we're mostly virtual, is people are going to have to do things. But if they feel like they're not being judged every time they go to a doctor's appointment, then you get the loyalty from them because they feel like you understand them better. So be a great leader by letting your team be great.
Love it. All right, final question here, and we're wrapping up today. How do purpose and empathy shape the way you approach marketing today? And maybe share a quick personal story of like where your work had a meaningful impact on either a customer or an employee. We'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we touched on it a little bit, but empathy is everything, right? And it's, if you understand your guests and you're solving their problems, then you become a brand they can't live without. Right. And because then you're not just, because the whole thing for restaurants, especially, is you have to get in that 3 restaurant consideration set in each category. If you say, let's go get Mexican, there's 2 or 3 brands in your head. You have to be in that list. Right. But if folks feel like, well, they understand me, and loyalty does part of that. Part of how you brand message does that. Part of how you interact with your communities, right? If I'm in Johnson City and I see a Barbarito sign on the ball field at my little kids' Little League field, I know that brand cares enough to at least try to do that. So there's a lot of ways to show empathy. I had a story, a really interesting story. This just happened probably a week ago, 10 days ago. But I got a call from a care nurse at a hospital. I won't say the city. I'm sure the HIPAA laws would deter that anyway. But and she was saying that she had a patient, and this patient was battling some stuff, but was getting better. But a lot of their family came into town. And we're there to support this person. And so they said, is there anything you could do? They said his favorite meal is Barbaritos, and he's got all these people at his house, but he's in the hospital. So is there anything you can do to help? Even if you could get a discount or something, we could help. And so, and it's funny because she sent this note and it circulated around her office pretty quickly. And then so everybody was jumping in and like, oh my gosh, we're going to make this big, right? And so I called the franchisees in that part of the country, and they couldn't wait to do it. And they're like, oh, no, it's free. No, we'll get this covered. And, and it just became one of those things where it mattered, right? And the fact that this guy said that we, at a place that he's at, and I'm going to get emotional, but the place where he is in his life, that our brand mattered enough where he's like, this is how I'm going to show my love to the people that are coming in to show love to me. And then to get my franchisees to step up and say, we got this. Well, you tell me how many people and we'll be there with bells on. It matters. And so I guess this will always be an emotional game. Marketing and especially restaurant marketing will always be, your customers matter so much because they can go a million places, and you need to never forget that. And then with the franchisees too, never forget that I love my franchisees. They're betting everything on you. They're betting their kids' education fund, their life savings, and all their time and energy, and those things matter. So focus on your guests, focus on your franchisees, focus on your strategy, and put people first. Those are the biggies in this business.
It's clear that listening, caring, and then giving people a way to share their big ideas and is key to breaking down silos across teams. So we've heard that very loud and clear, Joel. It's been great to have you. Thanks for joining us on the Marketing with Purpose series. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas for you on how you can align strategy, execution, and purpose in your own work. If you found value in this discussion, like, subscribe, and share it with others. Let's keep the conversation going. And remember, great marketing doesn't just sell, it serves. See you next time.
That's it.